Today is the day we're going to make a handle for our mug that should be set up a little bit harder. Doesn't have to be quite leather hard, but definitely should be firmed up. You need a little bit, about this much clay, I would say. You're going to make a carrot out of this, carrot shape or carrot form, and then I'm going to show you how to make the handle. So I'll make the carrot form first. Okay, so one side is thinner than the other side, just like a carrot. And if you take this and you give it a little bit of a twist, not a ton, I'm actually kind of compressing it as I twist it so I don't twist it apart from each other, but I give it a little bit of a twist. This is going to help me when I roll. So I want to keep it thinner on one end, thicker on the other when I roll this coil. So I will do that, and that sort of twist helps it stay and not get those weird flat parts when you're making this. Okay, so now I have a longer, smoother, round, sort of even carrot, thinner on the side and wider on this side. Now I'm going to do this amazing trick where I slap it on the table. So my video is going to shake, but this is what you're going to do. You're going to try to slap it completely flat down, straight. And so when you pick it up, you'll have one side flat and one side is rounded. And this is the beginning of a handmade handle. There are lots of ways to do it. I showed you other videos. We're going to do this for this mug choice. So you will need water and a sponge. You're going to make sure you hold on to a dry part of the clay up here, meaning no water is added. And first I'm just going to give it a little bit of gloss. And when I do that, see how I lift it up and it sort of starts to move already in a handle shape? Well, our handle can't be this thick. So as we sort of pick it up with a wet sponge, you are literally pulling it as well. And when you do this, you're creating this natural curve, you're thinning it out, and you're creating sort of this perfect way for a hand to rest in the handle. And as you do this, it'll stay flat on this side and it'll round on the other. And you're also sort of squeezing, so you're squeezing the sides a little bit when you do it. You don't want your sponge to drag. You don't want to be pulling clay off. You shouldn't have like tons of clay on your on your sponge. And so this would be a really big handle. You might get weak spots. And if that happens, like if I had a weak spot right there, I'd just take it off and I'd start again. But sometimes you'll get a weak spot where you have to just start over. That happens all the time where it's just going to get too thin. And you're basically pulling this until it feels like a good sized handle. So this, looking at this bottom curve right here, this part. So there's a lot of clay I didn't use, but that's okay because that made a really good handle and you definitely want a lot of support. So I still think this might be a little thick up here. That's about, wow, almost, let's see, how thick is that? That's important to know. Yeah, that's over 1/2 inch. You definitely don't want anything thicker than that. You don't want like skinny, weak handles, but 1/4 inch is better at the bottom, and 1/2 inch is a little thick up top. So that's pretty good. So about now, what I'm going to do is you can leave it just like this, or you could do this fancy thing where you basically put kind of a line down the middle. You have to do it while you are moving you can use your finger and keep keep your sponge in your hand because it will help you. It'll help you go straight. So you could do that if you want. You can always clean this up later. And then I'm going to take all this clay off, put it back in my bag. And I'm going to make sure that this sits on, actually we're going to use it today. So I'm going to put it out on my wood. I'm going to make sure it sits the way I want it to be, the curve that I want. So it should sit just really nicely how you want it. And then I'll leave it alone for, 10, 15 minutes. And what I'll do is I'll work on making sure this is exactly how I want it to be. If I want to smooth out any pieces, smooth out any insides, make my bottom more interesting than this, which I would like to. Make sure you sign. Now is the time to sign, put the period and the symbol on the bottom. These are all going to look the same, even if you think yours will look different. They'll all look the same in the end. So I'll clean this up, take some time. You can also take a blow dryer to your handle, or if you're outside, put it in the sun. Check on it if you do that, because it can dry pretty quickly. And when it firms up just a little bit, we will put it on. Okay, time to do your handle. So I have cleaned this up. I could do more, but I just wanted to make sure I could show you how to do the handle. I've signed the bottom and my handle is ready to go. This one is leather hard, but if yours is a little less than leather hard, that is perfectly fine. As long as this is firmed up a little bit and it's closer to leather hard. So you have to decide where you would like it. Think about where it would feel best to hold the mug, what you want to look at when you're holding the mug. So I'm going to do mine in between the darts, and I'm going to cut this down so it fits a little better, and it's the angle of the pot I want it on. I can't move my handle anymore. If I move this now, if I try to form it differently, it will break. So if yours is plastic, it can be moved, but it should be a little firmer than that. So I will cut it to the angle. That takes a little while to figure out how you need to cut that. And worst case scenario is you cut it wrong and you make another handle. But I want to make sure that I know where it's going to go. So I know I'm going to put my handle about right here. So that is where I'm going to score. I'll do the bottom scoring in a second because I want to cut it first to see where the bottom, I'd like the bottom to be right here, but we'll see. So I'm going to cut it, get rid of some of this thickness. Watch the bottom. It's easy to sort of cut into that bottom piece there and see how that fits. Okay, that's a little better, not quite there yet. So I need it to fit. Gotta cut it a little more like that. Cut it this way. That's fitting a little better. And then I can cut my bottom too. I find that most people, when they do handles, see how that cut is all wonky? I do both sides. So I get it even. It's a little better. I can see how it sits. Most people, when they cut handles, basically end up making their handles too big. So I feel like this needs to be a little bit straighter. It's okay to take slow bits off at a time instead of all of it at once, because if you do that, then you can make alterations. So that looks great, actually. Make sure it's exactly where I want it to be. I can mark that there, mark the bottom and the top, and then I will score and slip. Okay, so I've put my handle on. I want to make sure that I never, ever, ever hold my mug from my handle at this point. I always am going to hold it without touching the handle. And I'm going to, after I've made sure there's lots of slip and I've really pushed it onto my piece, I've really secured it on there, so it feels nice and snug. I'm still going to clean up and seal all these welded points. I will make sure that I add some coils, so you don't have to score inside of there, but I am going to score a coil. And you can have, you know, a smaller coil, that's okay. You should have plenty of slip that's sort of poked through, but if you don't, you can add it. And these coils are going to save and hold anything you're doing, give it support, because the clay is asking for any reason to come apart. So we want to make sure, I'm going to spin it sort of around underneath because my coil's long enough. Make sure I'm supporting it the whole time. And I'm pressing as I go so I don't have any air bubbles caught in there. Giving it lots of support the whole time. And then your fingers, you definitely don't want to leave it like that. That looks super messy and ugly. I will take fingers or some kind of smoothing tool. I will support wherever I possibly can. So remember, just like we did with our last piece, I believe, if you put your mug down on a bunch of, like a towel right now, or something soft, an old cushion, an old pillow, it's really awesome because then you don't have to worry about it changing form or shape. And then I will work on making this come together really nicely. And I'll do that on the bottom as well. And then I'll make sure that this looks completely like it's part of the handle. So it's all smoothed out. Your coil might be too big. It's okay if you end up taking some off as you sort of smear it together and reinforce. But you might like that you get kind of a little bit of a different natural curve going on, how it attaches. Make sure your hands aren't full of messy clay when you do this, so you're not getting it all over the mug as well. At this stage, I'll stop and I'll wait to come clean it up. Get rid of all this mess here on my stick. Then I'm going to do the bottom coil, clean it up, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. All right, I realized the only thing I probably forgot to tell you is it's a great idea to make 2 handles per mug, because somewhere in the process, there's always one that's better than the other. And then also in the process, you could have cut it too short, or it has a weak spot that you didn't know about it. So it's nice to have a second one, but you can always make another. Don't settle for a crappy handle. You want the handle to be able, don't test it, but you want it to be able to be held. You will never, ever, ever hold the handle on a piece, even when it's bisque fired. Not until it's glaze fired do you hold the handle. because it can snap off really easily. You'll clean it all up, you'll clean the whole piece up, and then you will have created a round-bellied, darted, square-bottomed mug. Yay!